Mara Ellison had always been the kind of girl who went unnoticed. She sat in the back of pack gatherings. She kept her eyes low during meals in the communal hall. She carried her small frame through the corridors of Silverstone Pack territory, the way a shadow moves, quietly, without asking for space. She had learned early that asking for things often led to disappointment, and she had decided, somewhere around the age of 12, that she would rather hope quietly than want loudly. But on the night of her 15th birthday, Mara allowed herself to want something. She stood at the edge of the bonfire celebration in her best dress, a soft blue thing her mother had stitched by hand, with her dark hair loose around her shoulders, and her heart beating fast with a hope she had been saving for years. Every young wolf knew about the mate bond. Every young wolf grew up hearing that fate would choose someone for them, someone made precisely for who they were. And Mara, who had grown up with very little, held on to that promise more tightly than most. The fire crackled and threw orange light across the clearing. Music played. Wolves laughed and danced and filled the warm summer night with noise. And then, across the clearing, Mara's eyes found Drake Calloway. He was tall and golden-haired, and laughing at something one of his friends had said. He was the future beta of Silverstone, well-liked and easy with his smiles. The moment Mara looked at him, something warm and powerful rose in her chest. A pull, clear and certain, like a compass needle swinging north. She knew immediately what it was. She took a breath. She walked toward him. Drake looked up when she was a few feet away. His laughter faded. He looked at her, really looked at her, and his expression changed in a way that Mara would spend years trying to forget. It was not surprise. It was not even cruelty exactly. It was something worse. It was embarrassment, as though fate had made a mistake that reflected badly on him. "You?" he said. His friends went quiet. "You're my mate?" Mara stopped walking. "I reject you," Drake said, loudly and clearly, the way someone makes a public announcement they want witnessed. "Completely, permanently. I don't accept this." The bond snapped. There was no other word for it. Something inside Mara's chest, something that had only just come alive moments ago, simply broke. She felt it the way you feel a branch snap under your foot, sudden, sharp, and then a terrible silence where there had been warmth. Her legs gave out. She sat down on the grass without meaning to. Nobody helped her up. She heard laughter somewhere behind her. She heard someone say her mother's name in a low, pitying tone. She sat on the cold ground in her blue dress and stared at the fire until her eyes stopped working properly. And then she got up, walked home alone, and lay in the dark for 3 days. When she came out of her room on the 4th day, she had made a decision. She was leaving. Mara was not reckless about it. She was 15, and she was hurt, but she was also the daughter of a woman who had raised her alone on almost nothing, and she had inherited her mother's practical mind. She finished the school year. She saved every coin she could find. She applied to a high school 2 states away under her mother's family name, Voss, and when the acceptance came, she packed one bag and walked out of Silverstone without looking back. She did not tell anyone she was a wolf. The human world was quieter. It was also, she discovered, kinder than she had expected. Humans did not rank people by bloodline. They did not stand in circles and laugh at a 15-year-old girl who had done nothing wrong. They were busy with their own lives, and they left Mara alone to build hers, which was exactly what she needed. She was good at school. She turned out to be very good at it. Science came easily to her. The patient work of observation, the careful recording of facts, the way nature followed its own rules without asking anyone's permission. She earned a scholarship to a university far to the north. She studied environmental science. She made 1 or 2 quiet friends, kept careful boundaries with everyone else, and told herself, regularly, that she was fine. She almost believed it. The ache in her chest never fully went away. It was not sharp anymore. It had settled into something dull and constant, like a tooth that has been damaged but not removed. She ignored it, the way you learn to ignore a small, persistent pain, by keeping busy, by staying focused, by never sitting still long enough for it to speak. Her wolf went quiet too, somewhere in those first years. Mara did not phase. She told herself it was because she had no safe place to run, no open territory. She did not examine the real reason too closely. Some things are easier not to look at directly. 6 years passed. The summer she turned 21, Mara took a field research position in the northern wilderness. She was tracking elk migration patterns for her graduate thesis. 3 months alone in remote forest territory, with a tent, a data notebook, and enough coffee to survive the cold mornings. She had chosen the location specifically because it was isolated, far from cities, far from packs, far from anyone who might recognize the name Ellison or remember a bonfire from 6 years ago. She did not know the territory belonged to anyone. She found out on the 5th day of camp, when she rounded a tree line with her notebook open and walked directly into a group of 7 large men standing around a fire. She stopped. They stopped. Everyone looked at everyone else. "I have a research permit," Mara said, holding up her university badge. Her voice was calm. She had learned to keep her voice calm. "From the Regional Land Authority. I can show you the paperwork." One of the men, broad, with a scar along his jaw, looked past her at something. Mara turned. A man stood at the edge of the tree line behind her. He was tall, dark-haired. He wore no expression in particular, which was somehow more commanding than any expression she could have named. His eyes were the color of deep water, and they were fixed on her with a focus that made her feel, for a strange moment, like the only thing in a very large space. She felt it again. That warmth, that pull. She shut it down immediately, the way you clamp a hand over a candle. "I'm not trespassing," she said, turning back to the group, keeping her voice level. "I'll be out of this area by morning, if this is private land." "It is private land," the man at the tree line said. His voice was quiet and even. "But you're welcome to stay the night. There's a storm coming from the north. Your tent won't survive it." Mara looked at the sky. He was right. The clouds on the horizon had that specific dark weight she had learned to recognize. "Dinner first," he said. "Then we can discuss permits." His name, she learned over the next hour, was Caius Ashvale. She did not know what that name meant in the wider world of packs and bloodlines. She did not follow that world anymore. She sat across from him at a camp table and ate a simple meal, and answered his questions about elk migration with straightforward honesty, and he listened with the kind of attention that most people reserve for things they genuinely care about. It was strange. Nobody had ever listened to her talk about elk migration like it was interesting. "What made you choose this field?" he asked. "Animals follow patterns," Mara said. "They don't pretend. They don't perform. They do what they're built to do, and you can learn to predict it if you're patient enough." She paused. "I find that restful." He looked at her for a moment. "You find predictability restful." "I find honesty restful," she said. "Predictability is a side effect." Something in his expression shifted. Not quite a smile, but close. She stayed the night. The storm was as bad as he had predicted. She stayed the next night because her data equipment needed recalibrating, and there was a power source in the camp she could use. She stayed the night after that because, if she was being honest with herself, she had not slept that soundly in 6 years, and she did not want to examine why. Caius did not rush her. He walked with her through the forest in the early mornings, while she collected data, and he was quiet when she needed quiet, and present when she glanced over to check if someone was still there. He remembered how she took her coffee without being told twice. He asked follow-up questions about things she had mentioned days earlier, which meant he had actually listened. He did not ask about her past. He did not ask about her pack, though she knew he could tell she was a wolf, could tell the way any wolf can, by something in the way a person moves, something in the eyes. His people watched the two of them with expressions ranging from confusion to poorly hidden amusement. Mara noticed. She did not comment on it. What she did not notice, or rather, what she worked very hard not to notice, was that her wolf was waking up. It happened slowly. A warmth in her chest that she had been pressing down for days was growing harder to ignore. It rose in the mornings, when Caius appeared at the edge of her camp with coffee and a quiet good morning. It rose when she caught him reading her field notes with genuine focus. It rose when she overheard one of his men say, low and wondering, that they had not seen him look like that in a long time. On the 14th night, she packed her bag. She was very good at leaving. She had done it once before, and built an entire life from the ashes of it. She could do it again. She would say thank you in the morning, show herself out, and returned to her tent and her data and her carefully managed life. She was at the edge of camp at 4 in the morning, bag on her shoulder, when she heard footsteps behind her. She did not turn around. "You feel it," Caius said. It was not a question. Mara was quiet for a moment. Then, "Yes. And something happened that makes you afraid of it." She turned around then, because she was not a woman who let someone else name her fears and said nothing. She looked at him in the dark, steady, quiet, patient as the forest around them, and she made a decision she had not planned. She told him everything. She told him about the bonfire, about the blue dress, about Drake's voice, loud and clear, making sure everyone heard, about the ground coming up to meet her and nobody offering a hand. She told him about leaving at 15 with one bag and a last name that wasn't hers. She told him about 6 years of keeping her wolf locked away because it was easier than feeling what the wolf wanted to feel. Her voice stayed level through most of it. Her hands shook a little toward the end. When she finished, Caius was still for a long moment. The forest around them was completely quiet. "He was a coward," Caius said, "and he put his shame on you because he didn't know what to do with it. And you have been carrying it ever since, as though it belonged to you." Mara stared at him. "It doesn't," he said simply. "It never did." Something in her chest, that old dull ache, the one she had been managing for 6 years, cracked. Not painfully, the way a window cracks to let air in after a room has been closed too long. She sat down on a fallen log and cried. Not the small, controlled kind she had allowed herself on difficult nights over the years, but the deep, releasing kind that comes when something that has been held too tightly is finally allowed to go. Caius sat beside her. He did not speak. He did not fill the silence with reassurances. He simply stayed, which was more than she had ever been offered. After a while, she asked, "What are you?" "Alpha King of the Iron Veil territory," he said. "I've held it since I was 22. She absorbed this. "And you walked me through the forest at 6 in the morning to look at elk tracks. You made it sound interesting." She laughed, a short, surprised sound. He looked at her when she laughed, and there was something in his expression that she finally allowed herself to see clearly. He was not looking at her the way Drake had, with calculation or embarrassment. He was looking at her the way someone looks at something they have waited a long time for, and cannot quite believe is real. "I won't pressure you," he said. "I won't declare anything publicly without your consent. If you need more time, or more distance, or another 6 years, I will be here." "You'd wait 6 more years?" she said. "I've been waiting since I was 22, he said. "I'm patient." She did not need 6 more years. She needed 3 weeks. 3 weeks of mornings with coffee and quiet, and a man who asked follow-up questions and meant what he said. 3 weeks of being treated like someone whose thoughts were worth hearing, whose presence was worth making room for. On a cold morning near the end of September, with frost on the grass and her breath making small clouds in the air, Mara made her choice. Not because the bond demanded it. Not because fate had planned it. Because she had spent 6 years becoming a woman who made her own decisions. And this one felt, for the first time in a long time, like something she was choosing freely. She accepted the bond. And then something happened that she had not expected. Her wolf, silent for 3 years, curled inward and still, woke up. Not with a start. With a slow, certain rising, like the sun coming over a hill. Mara felt her shift before she saw it. Warmth spreading from her chest outward, strength returning to her limbs, the world sharpening at its edges, the way it only does when the wolf is present. She ran. Through Iron Veil's forest, through the cold morning air, through pine trees and frost-covered ground, faster than she had moved in years, until her lungs burned and her legs ached, and something that had been broken in her chest for 6 years simply was not broken anymore. She came back to camp with mud on her feet and her eyes bright. Caius was standing at the tree line, watching her with that expression she had finally learned to read. "Better?" he asked. Mara considered the question honestly, the way she considered all things, with patience and care. "Yes," she said, "I think I actually am." And for the first time in 6 years, she meant it completely.